And we are live. Welcome, everybody, to the Space Water Podcast, where we dive into the sound of the light every week, right here on YouTube. This is episode 84 of the Space Water Podcast. I have my long-time friend and guest of the show. Actually, it's been 10 years since our first interview. She's been coming on periodically. The first time I interviewed this amazing woman is in 2015. So this year in August, will be 11 years, actually.
Wow. Wow.
Incredible. The one and only Maria Wheatley, everybody. She has about an hour to spend with us today because she's so busy traveling all over the world to megalithic sites and doing tours. We're going to be talking about this as well and how you can become available to join these tours with Maria. Once in a lifetime events. Maria, thank you for coming on the Space Water Podcast. It's my pleasure.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks. Thanks for having me. It's great to be in good company.
Yep. Maria and I have been in correspondence for many years, and not just a guest on the radio show, but we share our research with each other. And I gotta say, everybody, I've had contact with many people in this genre or this community that we're in. Maria is one of the she the way she carries her character, I respect highly. She's a dedicated researcher. She's a very intelligent woman and courageous to speak about what she speaks about. And she's like I said, she's an expert in her field. And I think just starting now in the last few years, you're starting to get more appreciation and more acceptance of your work. And for people that don't know, she actually is known as well for finding the long skulls of the UK area, and so I think we should get into that because we never actually talked about that on my show before.
Oh,
How
okay.
the elongated skulls are not just with Peru and places like that people are more familiar with, but they're a worldwide phenomenon, and even in the UK at Stonehenge and the surrounding areas. So can we get into that a little bit? How you even came into
Absolutely.
that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yes, you're right. A lot of people think of elongated skulls and they automatically think of Paracas. That's where a lot of people go first of all. But it was about 10 years ago now in 2015 that I was looking into the Stonehenge environs because it's a massive area, Stonehenge. It doesn't just contain the stone circle. And I came across the largest long barrow in Northwest Europe. It's huge, nearly 400 feet long. So it's a long earthen construct. And inside of that construct was a skull of a woman. So I just thought I've got to find out who this person is. And then I discovered she had an elongated skull. Later on, I went on to discover that the people of the UK in the Neolithic Orthodox dating, that's about 5,500 years ago, had naturally long skulls. They were born that way. But some of them, the elite, the high queens and the high kings, and the priests and priestesses, would extend it with cranial deformation. So there was a hyper elongated skull type and a lesser elongated skull type, but they were naturally long skulled. And they were found in the long barrows across Europe, in effect. And they were quite incredible because they were quite small. A lot of people think the ancient world is just full of giants. Well, it certainly wasn't then because the femur bone, the long bone of the leg, once you have that, you can measure it. And the measurements came out for men about 5 feet 4, 5 feet 6 tops, and women about 4 feet 9. Furthermore, when I looked into their ear placement and their skull in depth, their ears were set further back. They had different bone structure than you and I, which I believe they could hear different frequencies coming out of the stones and coming out of the earth.
Wow,
And
interesting.
be, yeah, because their ears were further back, I think that's where part of the mythology, at least, was where they were the Fae. And the Fae in the Tuatha De Danann Irish mythology were found in the mounds. They descended rather into the mounds. And I think they're in association with these long skulled people. I actually sent the report by an anthropologist to a friend of mine who is a doctor in London, a physician doctor. She works in the accident and emergency department. ER, as you guys, I think, call it. And she was the one that pointed out, is this correct? Why are you saying this time and again about their ear bones? And I said, I'm copy cutting, pasting it. And that's when she said, this is completely irregular. So we know that they had different ear bones, and that could resonate
Huh.
to different frequencies.
Wow. Is it a
So what
more
I
dense bone too?
Yes, yes, it is. And same with the skull. The skull tends to be more dense as well. But the main thing is they would have looked very different. They would have looked mythological. By that, what I mean is the size of the average person's head today and round-skulled people is 1/8 of their body mass. It's how designers do hats and it's a design thing. Artists draw that way. It's called in proportion. Okay.
Yeah.
But the Neolithic skulls, although they were long skulled and some extended, their actual heads were 1/10 of their body, meaning they
Whoa.
had small heads, a long body, but elongated nonetheless. So they would have looked out of proportion to how you and I would look and relate to one another's appearance. So that's why I describe them as a mythical looking race, because you would do a double take now. Yeah, if you saw
Yeah.
one
Did,
coming in. Sorry.
have you has there been other fragments of bones found, like maybe with their feet or legs, to see what their gait would be like?
Yes, some full skeletons have been found. That's a really good question. And yes, it seems that, again, from a mussel report, some mussels survive mainly down to the soil type, as long as it's not acidic. You
Yeah.
can get bones and certain fats and things survive. And in one case, it was saying that they had very strong muscular legs. So they seem to be quite muscular, even though they looked out of proportion. So it is a strangeness, really, of what these people were. The aDNA, the ancient DNA analysis, which was done by Dr. Ian Barnes, some about sort of 4 years ago, I think, he pointed out that when the very tall, we call them the beaker culture in archaeology, the round skulled people entered the British Isles, Orthodox dating, around 2500 BC. When they entered, there was a change in traditions. So, for example, they never intermarried, so they never had children, and they stayed apart, according to Dr. Ian Barnes, Professor Ian Barnes, rather, for 500 years. So these two cultures, the tall round-skulled people, called the beaker culture, and the elongated skulled people, were separate. And then, according to Professor Ian Barnes, there was a tipping point. And that tipping point, I thought there has to be a hybrid skull, because they were suddenly the ones that survived interacting. So I looked around archaeological report after archaeological report and found hybrid skulls. That's not long skulls and not round skulls proper, but the in between in the Avebury environs and some in the Scottish uh, mainland as well. So that's what we're thinking about. We're thinking about these two people have been separate cultures for such a long time. Ian Barnes goes on to say he thinks that some of them could have suffered from disease, a bit like when the Spanish rather went into Mexico. There's a lot of illness, and maybe that's what the Beaker people brought as well. But what I do know is the archaeologists say with uncertainty, and they're baffled why places like Stonehenge and many other places besides suddenly got changed and altered with the beaker culture. So the beaker culture came in, they looked at Stonehenge and they started to uproot the blue stones and change the design, making it theirs. Okay, and I'm really proud to say, Ra, a bit like yourself, archaeologists are finally catching up with what I've been saying for years, and now saying that the beaker culture changed Stonehenge, and they were taller, they were fairer skinned, and they were more robust. That's
Wow.
why we get phase one, phase two, phase three. It's different civilizations,
Yeah.
different people coming across with new ideas, new concepts. Everything changed with the tall beaker culture that some people call giants. I think they were very tall. I don't know about being massively huge. Certainly 6 feet nine. Some of them could have been as tall as 7 feet. Against somebody 4 foot nine, they would look like giants. And I think, again, this is all of the mythology that
Yeah.
we've been brought up as children. Giants, the fae, fairies, the small folk. So this is where I think some of it came from and why some monuments got changed and altered.
Yeah, and like you said, they're not necessarily supernatural. When people have different structures of their anatomy, they have different sensitivity levels, right? And
Exactly. Yeah.
so some people would have more telepathic abilities, more sensitivities to sound and light and frequency and all of that. So they would seem like supernatural to some people because they would be more enhanced, almost like if you look at like a dog's hearing or sniffing compared to us, it's supernatural,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And interestingly, I noticed in one of my experiments, as you know, I've done some scientific experiments in the ceremonial landscapes of the British Isles. And one sound emission coming from a standing stone is around 18 hertz. We hear at 20. I think the long-skulled people could hear that 18 hertz coming out of the stone, for example. So their experience and their interaction with stone circles would probably be very different to our experience when we go into a stone circle, for example. So it does answer many questions about why a stone's placed where they are. Why is one stone over there and the stone circle is here? It's normally down to acoustics. I certainly found out in my journey looking into sound frequencies at stone circles.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about these smaller people too, it makes me think of I don't even know if it was the Naragi civilization that made them in Sardinia, but the smaller, the megalithic dolmens. You've been there
Yeah,
with the smaller entrances.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, they're sometimes even the long barrows over here, not far from where I am today, actually, it's called the Giant's Grave. But inside it had small people, but it's a massive long mound. So we need to go further than a namesake. And
Yeah.
some of them in Sardinia are namesakes, associated with giants. I think there were two individual human beings, races at that time that have for whatever reason, slowly disappeared. Again, to quote Ian Barnes, if I may again, he noticed that by 2480 BC, most of the ancient Britons, which I call the elongated skulled people, he calls the ancient Britons, DNA had been eradicated and we were European DNA. He's looked into hundreds and hundreds of Bronze Age and Neolithic ancient DNA. So we know that they disappeared around about 2480 BC, corresponding rather to all of the changes at Stonehenge. Yeah, that's the correlation. At least they were altering that the beaker culture, like I said earlier, and more than that, at places like Stonehenge, you had originally timber structures just outside of Stonehenge too. They were D-shaped buildings, probably of timber, inside of which housed a stone. Today we call them the station stones and they're on top of a mound. But what the beaker culture, the tall people did, they dismantled the stone from that healing structure, covered it in grass, decommissioning it, destroying it, and then placed the stone on the top. That's been an enigma with the archaeological societies for some time. Why did they do that? That's because that was the beaker culture. That's what the beaker culture did. So they changed quite a bit of Stonehenge and other monuments. They added avenues to certain stone circles as well. Avenues tend to be later than the stone circle itself. You
Wow.
tend to get the central features first, then the circle, then the avenues.
So
Okay.
it's almost like they took them offline in a way, in certain ways. And
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, and altered them and tinkered with them. But you go on to Google or Wikipedia, and you ask what an avenue was used for at Stonehenge and Avebury, and every single site will tell you, 9 times out of 10 at least, that that was a processional way for people to walk into the monument. Recent analysis by archaeologists Josh Pollard and Mark Gillens noticed at Avebury the compression marks, meaning where people have walked year after year and in ancient times, were on the outside of the avenues, not the inside of the avenue. So we need to rethink things, say something so much time and time again, and it becomes a truth when really it's disinformation.
yeah. I find in New York, like in the woods and all over the East Coast, probably throughout all over the United States, just from my own investigation, I wonder if it's similar in the UK. Like a lot of these megaliths or dolmens that are, uh, there'll be a stone that's shaped a certain way that seems to be pointing towards a water source. Do they have certain stones like that that seem to be pointing in towards water sources?
Some of the stones in the British Isles and Europe, to some regard, they can point to various things, like a topographical feature in the
Yeah,
distance, for example. They can point to where the sun and moon comes up. They could point to a notch in the hill. Do you see what a notch where a
yeah,
lay would go through? So yes, they can point to many different things. Most stone circles, large stone circles like Stanton Drew in Somerset, Avebury and Stonehenge in Wiltshire, are intimately associated with rivers. Their avenues lead to rivers. So they're intimately connected with water, and springs are often found around certain parts of those ceremonial
yeah,
landscapes.
yeah. It's
Like
very
at
interesting.
Yeah, sorry.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah, like at Silbury Hill. That's the largest man-made mound in Europe, certainly in the British Isles. It's a bit like Grave Creek in West Virginia. They're almost identical, those two monuments. So it's a man-made feature. Interestingly, Silbury Hill, which is about sort of half a mile, maybe a bit more from the largest stone circle in the world, Avebury Henge, is noted to have different layers of like organic, inorganic, organic, inorganic layers, a bit like Wilhelm Reich's orgone accumulator, for example. It was chalked over white. So Silbury Hill, this huge mound of these layers, was chalk white. The pyramids in Egypt were finished off with limestone, and they were finishing off here with chalk, making it very similar to the Giza Plateau. So what we were seeing with monuments like this, and here we're looking at Silbury Hill now. Originally, the apex of that mound was more rounder. That was sliced off by the Normans, some say the Saxons, as a viewing platform. But it is very, very powerful. And originally, it would have had a moat all the way around it, filled with water. But
Is this
most
considered a tumulus, Maria?
no, there has been no burial found
Huh. Interesting.
in it. It's just literally these layers of organic. Yeah, it's really fascinating. So we need to see it as being chalked off. Now, with the retired engineer David Webb, we measured the electrostatic field at the bottom in a control area and at the top, and it was 1,000 times greater. Yeah, that's
Wow.
extraordinary. So we concluded with that data that if there was a copper stake at the top or pole coming upwards, vertical or gold. Remember the Giza pyramid were capped off in gold. Okay, that's a really good conductor. And if we had that copper over here, or could have been gold, then in the evening, by the time got to night time, the sides of Silbury Hill would start to accumulate in the electrostatic field. It's acting as a capacitor. It has that kind of conductor on the top, and it would glow blue. So we know that with that chalk there, it would have been gleaming in the day, and it would have been blue light of the
With Electrum,
electrostatic.
right?
Yeah. So that's what we conclude about Silbury. They are completely different in the ancient periods than what we're looking at today. Okay,
Yeah,
so
they
it would have been a wonder watching all of these mounds that were very large, like Silbury, starting to glow blue in the evening
wow.
at night.
So cool. That is so cool. Yeah, I think they would call like the gold electrum, right? The
Yeah.
stuff that they would put on. Yeah, I think they used to do it with obelisks as well.
Yes, yes. And again, once you've got a mound or a standing stone, obelisk is obviously huge, and you go above a certain height, the electrostatic field accumulates there. That's natural. That's like what nature will do. So put up a huge obelisk, put up a huge mound, put up a huge pyramid, then this is going to happen. And the ancients, I think, utilized all of this kind of natural source that they were emitting because their henges, we'll talk about henges in a moment, they created wonders that are absolutely beautiful. So, for example, surrounding Stonehenge, and Avebury, and all of the stone circles in the southwest of England, you had a chalk bank and a ditch on the inside. That's what a henge is called. Okay, so it consists of a ditch and a bank. If that ditch bank if the bank was really highly polished, which we think it was, then when the moon was quite high, we've just come out of the moon's metonic cycle, okay? That's where every 18.61 years it's going to be at its most southerly, very low in the sky, or it's going to be very high in the sky, the night of the high moon, the moon's most northerly point. Well, at those times in these chalk henge banks, the light we've calculated would have reflected off the henge bank if you had a chalk floor, and you would have got a spotlight beaming on a stone from the reflected moonlight. Now, Stonehenge, you could say, well, it's grass today. Everything is grass that I'm looking at. But a witness that I have in my legacy archive given to me by my late father, of the custodian and curator of Stonehenge for more than 25 years, he was at a dig with Professor Richard Atkinson back in the 50s, and he said that the chalk floor was it was brilliant chalk white. So we know that floor was originally designed to house those standing stones in white with a white bank, and that's the
Incredible.
criteria for that caustic beam, as it's called, to light up a stone at particular cycles of the moon. It was kind of in a way quite dramatic. Could you imagine being a priest lit up and bathed in subtle moonlight? These places were designed to go by night and by day.
It's like connected to the telluric energies of the planet too.
Yes, absolutely. Earth energies feature. The moon can activate Earth energies. We know the cycle of that with the
That's
geodetic
beautiful.
system of Earth energies is 6 days after a new or full moon. That's when the spiral patterns change. And to the ancient druids of this land, Ra, they would only pick mistletoe 6 days after a new moon. They would
Hmm.
only do things 6 days after the full moon, new moon. So it was almost that they knew those earth energy currents were changing and becoming, in a way, a bit like booting up your computer. It's got to boot up and it comes a little bit stronger. That's the time to pick your herbs.
Very incredible. Very incredible. You know, and we've lost so much of that knowledge and stuff. And there's a manuscript that was written in I think 15 or 1600s. I have it here. You ever hear of it? The Voynich manuscript?
The what? How do you
The
pronounce that? Sorry.
Voynich
Vo-
manuscript. I think that there it's describing many things that you're talking about. This is this is what the pages look like. This is a photocopy of some of the pages inside of it.
Okay, yeah, that looks great.
Yeah, these are from when was it first written? No one knows who wrote it or what the meanings are because it's like some sort of code. I forget the date when it was first written, but I mean it's from I think like 15th century, somewhere around there. And like it
Yeah,
has a whole
wow.
bunch of plants in it and like it seems like they're talking about different plants throughout the year and different star cycles and things like that. Yeah, the Voynich manuscript is what it's called.
No, send me a link to that,
I
Rob.
will.
I'll
Very
grab
interesting.
that.
And when you
Yeah,
started talking about what you were talking about, I'm like, it seems like the diagrams in there. Very interesting.
yeah,
Another thing I
yeah.
was thinking about is
Well,
the,
maybe
go ahead.
no, maybe it's because they witnessed these things because they were more, more incomplete then. They've become more and more ruinous after the 16th century here. Yeah. So
Yeah.
by the time of the 1724, they were burning stones at Avebury and pulling them down. So that manuscript was probably around the time when it was a little bit more complete.
Yeah, I don't know exactly how to pronounce the names, but I've read some books about different places that describe similar things to what you were talking about, the little people and different monuments. In Hawaii, there's a group called the Menehunes. Menehunes. It's spelled Menehunes. Menehunes. Menehunes of Kauai. They were these little people, and there's a book that I have, an older book, Patrick O'Mahony. It's like a supernatural of Ireland. It's like an old paperback from the 60s or 70s that I've read. And he talks about the little people of Hawaii. He calls them the Irelands of Hawaii. And they're like little people that pygmy races and different people that seem to have almost like supernatural abilities to the other people out there. And it seems that maybe they migrated or maybe there was a worldwide culture of these people.
That's really interesting. I have a copy of Pliny the Elder's
Yes,
manuscript. Yeah,
I
and
have that
in
too.
that, that is fascinating because again, like you're saying, you look at different plants, different species, different races of
Yeah, he
human
even talks about
beings.
like cynocephaly, like dogmen and all types of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've always been kind of very intrigued by what Pliny the Elder was said to have seen on his voyage. It was a record of him on that voyage, and this is what he said. So I think to be, understand the ancient landscape holistically, you need a lot of disciplines like astronomy, like geomancy, earth energies, and where I come from and like mathematicians, I've had a mathematician work with me to decode the musical harmonics of Stonehenge and many other sites besides. So I see the ancient world as having all of these priests and priestesses, these mathematicians, all coming together to create a society and ritual centers where they are certainly empowered with earth energy and sky alignments and, sun, moon, etc. Boom, coming together as a massive place of worship.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if there's a way to figure out or test this, maybe for us at least, but I have a theory that a lot of these sites are built on geomagnetic field lines that extend from the core of our planet all the way out into space, right? With our magnetic field. And I don't know if there's a way we could figure it out, like how they are, but I mean, they extend out on the night side of our planet, the magnetic field extends out because of the solar wind thousands of times the Earth. On the sun side, it's like 9 or 10 times the size of the
Yeah.
Earth. But think about how huge these magnetic fields are and connecting all the way out to the space and to the sun, literally to the sun. I think that they're gateways to the sun, a lot of these monuments. Like you yourself know, winter solstice morning, summer solstice, midsummer night, all these different nights are key nights for information coming in from the sun, from the light, or key mornings at the rise
Oh,
of sunrise.
absolutely, and it has been. I'm trying to think who did those experiments. The name will come. But when he was looking at, okay, you've got a henge monument and you've got
Yeah,
an entrance. That's called a causeway. Okay, so it's
yeah,
a bit like how you walk into a site. It was John Burke actually, and he noticed that the magnetic fields,
yeah.
of Earth, they seem to condense and flow through these causeway entrances are on the underneath either underground water or I would add earth
Oh,
current
seed of knowledge,
flames.
stone of plenty. Yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah. So all of these huge electromagnetic fields influence the earth, and there is no separation. So I would definitely think it would be, a gateway to the sun, a gateway to other planets, possibly besides. But you're right, the focus was on 9 times out of 10 of a lunar goddess and a sun god. Yeah, that was the main thing, and the moon is the light, reflected light of the sun. So I think, yes, I think that could be a key to
Yeah.
understanding ancient sites.
Yeah, incredible things happen when you introduce plasma and light into magnetic fields. Right? Collisions and all types of particle collision, all types of things can happen. So like I think that's it's almost like a some of these stone circles could almost be like particle accelerators. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like they're clashing together.
Yeah, yeah, for certain, when you get a standing stone, it has been recorded that the gamma rays, that, they're kind of invisible things coming from outer space, so to speak, and they can bombard and go inside of a megalith, and that can influence the megaliths. That has been
Yeah.
shown before. My late father did a lot on gamma rays and
Oh
the
my God.
interaction with that. So yeah, so it's all interacting at the same time. And even when the kind of gamma rays come in and they hit the crystal lattice, if you will, that can move particles around, and that can create sound release. According to some researchers, like Dr. Don Robbins, it can release memory inside of the stones. So, yes, we need to kind of think with through modern eyes as well as through the ancient reports.
Yeah, I gotta show you something now because now it's now it got me. So you've heard of Dante Alighieri, right? They did
Yes,
like the Divine Comedy. Well, hundreds of years later, Gustave Doré did his drawings of some of the Dante
okay,
Alighieri. You've probably heard. So the gamma ray burst in 2022. This is what the gamma ray burst. It was the brightest
you
gamma ray
cut
burst
out.
ever recorded. Can you hear me? Did it cut it out?
Okay.
Did it cut out for a
Yeah,
second?
when was
Yeah.
that? Right, he cut out.
All right. So
When was that?
the brightest gamma ray burst ever recorded was in 2022, and
Okay,
it was recorded over a couple of days because it echoes out. But the frozen still image is this. These rings are over 3 days echoing out the rings. But this is the brightest gamma ray burst ever recorded. What it looked like in 2022. Now
incredible.
let's go to Gustave Doré in the 1800s. What he drew as the highest light of the heavens, the Empyrean.
Wow, it's correlating, isn't it?
Right? He has these two figures looking at these concentric rings of circles that are angels, highest light of heaven. And now look at it's
There
even
you
in
go.
the centerpiece, like the explosion. This
Yeah,
shows us
there's
that we
core.
tap into the light of the universe. It's connected to us. Intuitively, we feel it, we see it. It comes out in our art. It comes out in our monuments, in our ringed circles, in our ring, it's explored through our creativity and what we build and what we make. And it's coming out, and it's coming out with you, within me. This is how we find things. This is how, things are broadcasted to us through the light, through what we're absorbing
Yeah,
from.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, I totally agree because, and what I do feel like I mentioned with the standing stones with gamma rays, now you add in that. like this super burst of activity of light coming through, then the stones would have been hugely releasing, because they release naturally anyway with the gamma rays, but have that like a super event, if you will, that probably resonates right throughout the stone circle itself,
Yeah.
because it was again, my late father discovered what he called crosstalk. That's where a particular energy beam, if you will, to keep it simple, goes from one stone to another, to another, to another. It's crosstalk. It carries energy to the stone circle, crossing it. And with that type of burst, that's going to, yeah, that's going to create a massive amount of change and activity.
Yeah, it's like an electron surge of information and everything. Yeah, it's incredible. That's
Yes,
incredible.
it certainly is. Well, that's very exciting to have a look at these, the artwork of the past to scientific information and
Yeah.
pulling that together. That's really exciting.
Yeah, that's like my main focus has been connecting the 30 plus years of mythology that I've been researching with plasma physics with because it's most of it has to do with the sun, most of mythology, the sun gods, the sun, the moon, and the earth, you know. So it's divine information about that, which you're uncovering on in your own way. It's incredible. The one thing I wanted to ask you about too is there's a spot on Stonehenge that you brought up on Facebook where water used to gather that they have
Oh,
freaking
yes.
cement poured into it now.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, again, I'm really graced, Ra, because I have the archives
Yes.
of Stonehenge. Yeah. So I've got a whole archive from the
Maria, what you're
crater I
doing is so
mentioned
valuable
earlier.
that you have that. So valuable that you
Yeah.
have that.
Oh, thank you. That's great for you to say. Now, in that archive, the curator said that he used to go, that's called, for geeks out there, Trilithon number 51. So if you go to Stonehenge, it's called Trilithon number 51. And any map of Stonehenge would have that on it. Now, on its outer face, this is how it was described in the 1940s. It had a hole 2 feet deep. You could put your whole arm into that stone, inside of the stone. And miraculously, according to the custodian, it would fill up with pure, fresh water. And even in a drought, but if you stared at it and you kept looking, when's it going to fill up with water? He said it didn't happen. So it became a curiosity. And he said in hot days it would fill up. And then people started to put it on eczema, on their bodies, on wounds, and it seemed to have a kind of curative properties about it. So people used to come and queue by it. It was a thing that you did. I have some very old postcards that say after healing at Stonehenge, handwritten, that people used to say.
Whoa.
And yeah, so there, it was a healing temple, and
It
that's
was like a
when
lore, a site for like lords or something like that.
exactly,
Yeah. Wow.
exactly. I've actually used those same words as yourself,
Really?
Ra. So
Yeah.
yeah, so great minds. Uh, and so that's when the Ministry of Works, there was no English heritage back in the 40s and 50s. It was a government department called the Ministry of Works. And the Ministry of Works said that it had to be plugged up with concrete and plastic. And that's what I point out to people. But if we go back to the 12th century, then it was Geoffrey of Monmouth who wrote the history of the kings of England. He introduced Merlin to the consciousness, and he said about Stonehenge, no stone at Stonehenge doth not have healing power. So people right up to the 19th century were able to buy hammers from the local town called Amesbury and chip away at Stonehenge. That's why some of the
Holy shit.
lintels and stones look wonky. They were dead straight. They were lozenge shape. And obviously that stopped in the
Wow.
1920s. But it was calculated by archaeologist Mike Pitts that he's talking about tons of Stonehenge went to Chippings,
Wow.
tons. So
That's incredible.
And if you mixed it with water, again, water features, you were talking about water earlier. If you mix sarsen stone, the stone at Stonehenge, with water and you place it on the body or ingest it, it's curative. That's what Geoffrey of Monmouth said from the 12th century onwards. And then in the 1960s, you had astronomy came along with Gerald Hawkins at Stonehenge, and everything became about astronomy there. They forgot about the healing. Do you see what I mean? Because it became scientific. You had all of these different ideas of the midsummer sun, and so the healing side sadly got forgotten. But there's another stone I'm going to put out on Facebook pretty soon. It's called the spine. I call them spine stones, Ra. And if you imagine you're at a stone circle, they're common at stone circles, and there's a grooved ridge coming out of the stone like a spine. Yeah, it literally looks like a
The
spine. And
Osiris stone.
so yeah, I call them spine stones. And if you put your back against the spine stone, you can feel heat radiate. At Stonehenge, you had a spine stone with two spines coming down at human height. They didn't go all the way up. Yeah. And if you place your hand, even today, over that spine ridge, you feel the heat coming out. One of the
Wow.
guards said to me, "What are you doing? You're not allowed to touch the stones." I said, "Oh, I'm just feeling the heat." And he kind of went, "Yeah, yeah." And I said, "Come over, take your glove off, have a feel." And he went like that and looked at me and said, "I shan't swear or curse on your show," but he went, "What?" And he realized he could feel the heat as well. That was
Wow.
another healing aspect of Stonehenge. Yeah,
That's
we've
incredible.
lost all of these connections with these healing stones, and that's the kind of lost wonders of Stonehenge.
Yeah, it's a shame how much we've lost with it. I wonder if there's some family lines that actually have like chipped pieces of Stonehenge and they've been handing them down to you know, like they're like family heirlooms now.
I would imagine there is, like I said, Mike Pitts said there was tonnage went, and again, when we think about galactic events, when we think about solar events or lunar events, what I've noticed is the healing stones at ancient sites, they really start to resonate to a more kind of like higher frequency, if you will, and their energy fields become much, much stronger on the kind of like putting energy outwards, and that's
Yeah,
called megalithic energy. And I've also done a lot of experiments on megalithic energy that we don't have time to go into today, but that's very, very powerful. That even when you walk away from a stone or you walk towards a stone, you're entering different types of sound frequency energy fields. I've proven that with copper probes in the ground, and you can't do that anymore. All experimentation at Avebury and Stonehenge has been banned. So I can't do that anymore because obviously you just be thrown off the site.
yeah.
But my when I was testing my brainwaves against where the megalithic energy was, it was analyzed by the Monroe Institute in the USA. There was definitely a correlation. My brainwaves were dramatically changing to a higher consciousness frequency where I knew and doused the energy field. Yeah. So it's not
Wow.
just people think you have to touch the stone. It's great, touch the stone. I would never say don't touch a standing stone. It's a wonder. But if you walk away, it actually gets stronger.
Yeah,
And I know that,
I took a
sorry,
test as a teenager for the Monroe Institute, a psychic test. Yeah, very interesting that you said that.
did you really?
Yeah, yeah.
So what did it come out with? Because I know you're pretty psychic, so it must have come out with a good 10 out of 10 roll.
Well, it was like it was an IQ test, and for because I had won a nationwide poetry contest when I was in middle school, and it was from the I went to public school, but it was called the Green Meadow Waldorf School. It was uh what's it called? What's his name? I have some of his books.
Steiner?
Steiner, Rudolf Steiner.
Yeah.
Rudolf Steiner. It was one of his they have like private schools, Rudolf Steiner private schools all over the United States, and we have one right here where I live. It's called Green Meadow, Waldorf. And I did a contest, a poetry contest that I won, and they then came to my school and asked me to take this test. It was like a hearing test, an IQ test, and all types of stuff. Like they were making visual tests. Yeah, I don't know exactly what the outcome was, but I had like I got my IQ results and stuff like that. I had like a between it was a little over 130 IQ, but I mean, what? How can they tell when you're a kid though? Like really?
I don't know. That doesn't surprise me because you're well known and you're becoming even more well known for your readings and things like that. So I'd say, well done for that.
Yeah, I don't remember all the specifics of it, but I think I was gonna like, they wanted me to go to the school, the private school too, but my parents weren't having that. Definitely not. Um, but uh, yeah, one of the things that I wanted to ask you before what do you have a couple minutes? How much time do we have? You have to go in a
Yeah.
couple
Say
minutes.
5 minutes, that'd be perfect. Yeah, that'd be about an hour, and that's
Yeah,
fine.
so to go back to what we were talking about with the cosmic rays, I could totally
Yes.
feel that at the balanced rock as well. And then I've talked about it with Glenn Kreisberg, my buddy Glenn. He when we have dolmens, it's almost like pulling a guitar string off the fretboard, where it could vibrate and resonate the cosmic rays that it's absorbing, right? The solar rays, especially on sites like Winter Solstice Morning, North Salem Balance Rock, the sun comes in right on top, right? It's a solar alignment. So like that
Mhm.
surge of winter solstice sun, it's like pulling a guitar string off the fretboard. You got the negatively charged ground, the positively charged atmosphere. So when you pull the stone off of the ground, it's literally vibrating and resonating the solar rays that it's pulling in and absorbing. So I think that's exactly what we're having here with the cosmic rays, even in places like Kalanish, where you got auroras throughout the year and it's breakthroughs in the magnetosphere. I mean, it's literally broadcasting the music of the sun, literally, right? And I think that's what these stones are doing, and what you're uncovering in your own angle, in your own way, is basically what I'm saying in many ways in my research. Right? The
Mhm.
light of the universe is being broadcasted and amplified and resonated at these spots.
Absolutely, and carried because when you've got quite a few of the solar aligned monuments have solar lays or ley lines, as you guys call them, lays going through them that carry that as well. And some of the lines can be feminine and more lunar and activated in more lunar ways as well. So we've got these carrier systems that go throughout the world. And it's interesting to know that these carrier systems, lays, grids, call them what you will, that when they were tested by an agricultural scientist back in the 1980s, and he started to grow foodstuffs along these carrier lines, the food was stunted because they're that active. Yeah, it's not necessarily good to live above. It's a bit of as a
Wow.
geomancer, I wouldn't say live above one of these lines. They're too active. You want to be in more what we call a neutral space without lays and things like that, because the tests that have done say that they are huge carriers of energy, solar energy, lunar energy, and sometimes with Mars alignments that affects the solar lines, and like with Venus and Earth, that will affect the female lines as well. So the whole of the solar system can interact with solar and lunar lines alike.
Yeah, I one of the items that you have from me is an opal skull that I
Yes.
made, and I charged it on winter solstice morning at the North Salem Balance Rock and on Lionsgate. That those two they were brought, that skull that you have was brought there on Lionsgate and on winter solstice morning. So it's very special because I sort of, underneath the Balance Rock, there's a ritual bowl there. And I don't know if it was meant to put seeds in, as John Burke has suggested, or what have you, but there's a ritual bowl underneath there. It's very old. I don't know if it's as old as the site itself, but my crystal skulls lock into place like it was meant for it right there. And certain crystals, I could show you. Hold on, let me show you the ritual bowl underneath real quick if you want to see
Yeah,
it.
absolutely.
Yeah, it's really cool. All right, so let me pull this up. So if you guys go to my site, it's here, and you'll see down here. Let me get to the ritual bowl. This is the North Salem Balance Rock, and this is underneath. This is the
Oh,
bowl.
I
This,
see. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. That's interesting because in places in Wales and Ireland and some parts of Britain, you have shelves that can be in barrows where you can place items on. Now, in a dolmen quite close to where I live, called the Devil's Den Dolmen, not far from my hometown, then the top rock is 16 tons of sarsen stone, but what I noticed is just where you place your head, it's carved inside of the stone so you can place your head
wow,
inside of the top huge rock, and that really puts your consciousness up upon high when you come out of there. So yes, I think they were being carved for various different reasons. There's a stone at Avebury very similar where you can place items in like that and have them charged up just like you charged up that
yeah,
wonderful skull, which I'd recommend people listening go check out Ra's site. I've got a couple of Ra's skull and a copper Herkimer diamond, isn't it? I've got a
yeah.
copper. What do you call them when they're kind of wrapped up in copper?
The
Uh,
Royal Cubic Copper Twist that I do, the tensor. Yeah,
yes, that's it. That's what I've got, and that's a beautiful photograph of the sun. Is it coming
yeah, and look, and
probably?
that's winter solstice morning. It sits right on top. It starts right down here. You see where in between the on winter solstice morning, right at the bottom line, right here where my arrow is.
Yeah,
The
got it.
sun appears here first on winter solstice morning, right down here, and then it goes all the way across the zone throughout the day. It gets higher and higher, and then by like later on in the day, you'll see it's up here, like moves across the stone on winter solstice morning, and that's exactly how they show Sekhmet. I mean, Sekhmet, where is she? I put it up here. Let's see, right? Sekhmet shown with the sun right on top of her head like that.
Yes,
Very,
yes, that's a
very. And to me, this represents magnetic fields, magnetic field lines, and the magnetic field coming from the sun, or the coronal mass ejection with the hooded cobra. It's got the loop, right? Magnetic field. So that's it's all solar divine knowledge about the sun, right? And to me, this is carved as an effigy. I don't know if you agree with me, but to me, that looks like an effigy to something like Sekhmet, a goddess, or
yeah.
Ashtaroth was pictured that way too. You
Yeah,
know?
absolutely. I mean, again, you get a lot of carvings around the sites of Avebury, and they're very, very subtly carved to look like some look like animals, some look like gods. So yes, I think they were doing the ancients were doing that globally.
Yeah,
You
and
know,
see when the sun goes down, look at the orbs that
that's for
appear.
sure.
Yeah, when the sun goes down, you cut up for a
Yes.
minute. I didn't know you were speaking because the friggin' cut out for a second. Sorry.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. It's my Wi-Fi today. It's not good.
Yeah, you cut out for a second, so I didn't know you were speaking. Yeah, you could see right when the sun goes down at twilight, these plasma balls appear, or where the orbs, and I think it's because of the piezoelectricity of the stone. Because you have
Yes.
you have underground water here, so that the
Yes.
underground water is going to make the quartz rub together in the granite, and the light come out. You know.
Yes, yeah, and absolutely, and also with the underground water, you have the energy patterns that are highly
Yes.
electromagnetic. So it's not just the underground water; it's its harmonic surface pattern that it emits. And I've done a lot of work on the different energy patterns and which one is stronger, which one contains more energy, and so on and so forth. So that's as an esoteric water diviner, that's what I've looked at most of my life, the different energy
Wow.
patterns that underground water emits. And that's what I do worldwide and look at places like Egypt, which I'll be going to hopefully soon. And I've got my own tour in Egypt in November as well. So I'm looking
Yes.
forward to doing some really good earth energy research there.
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up. Let's talk about this. How can people experience your dowsing, your books? Your I have one of your books here, Secrets of Stonehenge, incredible. She sent me a signed copy. I cherish it. How can people join your tours and experience your dowsing?
Absolutely. Absolutely. To go on a course with me, you can go to my teaching platform, which is esotericcollege.com. So just check that out. I've got loads of courses. And also, my tour platform is the Avebury, Avebury, the Avebury Experience.co.uk, and that's where I advertise my tours. And this year I'm going to go to Mexico in March. That's esotericcollege.com, and I thank you. And I'll be going to Mexico in March. Egypt possibly in April, definitely Egypt in November, and in 2027 I'll be going to the Bosnian pyramids and Peru with Brian Forrester and holding my own witchy workshop in Salem, witch capital of America. So lots of things coming up and lots of things happening.
Trying to get your esoteric, the Avery one to pop up. It's loading. So here's the esoteric college one.
Yep, yep, and that's got a link right there to Avebury Experience anyway, where you can see the symbol of Stonehenge. Just click on that, and that'll take you to the website, and vice versa. When
Yes, here we go.
there we go, there's the Avebury Experience, and yes, so that has my shop. You can get books there, and yeah, have a browse around, and think about if you're coming to Stonehenge. I do lots of guide work there, lots of esoteric work at these ancient sites, and I'm very spiritual and a druid, so I can introduce you to some of the ancient Celtic ways if you decide to come over and visit.
It's incredible. Maria, I can't thank you enough for coming on my show, and I'm looking forward to have you on again. Maybe we can get into the specific uh, trilathons next time and different things like that. Would love to
Yeah.
do that and pull up each stone and talk about it.
Yeah, nobody's done that, so that would be a first.
I was
Having
thinking about
each
doing that today, but we don't have the time. Yeah.
no, no, yeah, well, you always come up with these great ideas, Ra. You're very creative.
So let's schedule another one where we can have you on where we can actually talk about the specific stones. Everybody pick up Maria's books today, Secret History of Stonehenge. If you have the money, join one of her tours. It's a life-changing experience. I highly recommend her. But guys, you see, I don't my listeners out there, I don't interview many people. I have a very small reoccurring group of people that I have on my show, and it's for a reason because I highly respect these people. I agree with a majority of their work. I can't agree with everybody all the time, but I agree with the majority of their work, and I highly recommend them. And they're highly professional, and just incredible, Maria. I love your work. You're changing people's lives. I mean, that's incredible when people can change
Absolutely.
someone's life.
Yeah, and same to you, Ra. Full of respect and carry on your good work. And I'll look forward to your book when it comes out.
Very soon, actually. Yes. Everybody, the great Maria Wheatley. Oh, people are loving it in the chat room. Let me tell you, we have 12 people watching and 20 likes almost. So that shows you how YouTube doesn't even show you what's going on. We got, wait, 15 likes and 10 people watching. How is that possible?
There you go. Magic is afoot.
Yeah. All right, everybody. The great Maria Wheatley, Secret History of Stonehenge. This is the Space Water Podcast.